Hello folks, and welcome to Whisky Wednesday. Slightly fancier place to be compared to where we normally are in my living room. This is the Whisky Jar in Manchester, and this will hopefully be the home of Whisky Wednesday for the foreseeable future, unless they decide to kick me out for whatever reason. Today we are sampling the W.L.Weller 12-year-old, or the W.L.Weller 12-year-old. W.L.Weller, quite an interesting fella. His history is kind of very important to the maturation and the manufacturing of wheated-based whiskey, which is what this is. So instead of adding rye to bourbon for flavour purposes, he would add wheat instead. And as a nice little seal of approval, he would add a green thumbprint to all of his bottles, so you knew it was genuine, nothing was wrong with it, and that kind of links into the bonded warehouses that came around in 1897 as well, seal of approval and markings and all that kind of thing. This is part of Buffalo Trace's mash bill number 3, which is their wheated mash bill. So they have number 1 and number 2, which are heavily corn based with a change in rye. Number 3 is wheat, and number 4 is rye, just straight rye as it is. This is the same mash bill as Pappy Van Winkle, so if you can find this, this is the older design bottling. I don't think they make the 12 anymore. They just redesigned it a little bit. So if you can find the new one, it's the same mash bill as Pappy Van Winkle, just 100th of the price, which is quite nice. So no more messing around. It's 45%, it's natural colour. I believe it's filtered because they like to chill filter bourbon in America. So we'll crack on with the nose and see what's going on. Now, if any of you probably tried wheated bourbon before, Maker's Mark, Bernheim, that kind of thing, it's always quite a chocolatey style. And this straight away, you get loads of kind of like cocoa pops, cocoa powder, truffles. It's rather rich. There's a little bit of citrus too, which you would expect using corn, wheat, and a little bit of malted barley just to help fermentation with some sugar enzymes. Is going to release a slightly kind of green citrus note. Yeah, summarise, really chocolatey, rather sweet, a little bit of caramel, a little bit of vanilla, but it's mainly dominated by cocoa. We'll move on to the taste. Citrus comes through a bit more again. So initially actually it's quite sour, not to the point where it puts you off, it's just a nice contrast to those really rich chocolatey notes. Green apples, conference pears, kind of fresh acidic citrus, really lovely. Let's have another go. There's a tiny bit of heat. Again, much like the sourness, it's not enough to put you off. It's just there to make you know you are drinking whiskey. It is 45%. Wheated bourbon as a whole tends to have a reputation for being the softest kind. People love Maker's Mark. It is soft, it is easygoing, so they bottle it at a slightly higher strength just to give it a little bit more oomph. Yeah, lovely palate, very clean. And even with that little bit of heat and that bit of kind of sour citrus, does finish off very nicely. Finish itself, a little bit dry, to what to be expected. Virgin oak's a very intense style of oak to mature anything in. That's why the Americans tend to dominate with that flavour profile. Scotch is subtler, so as a result of using virgin oak, which is part of legislation, as I'm sure you all know, it does give you that very dry, little kind of vinegary, acidic style again. It's quite specific to this style of whiskey. I've tried the Buffalo Trace Antique release of this, which there's a bottle I've sat at home. I'm waiting to open that for you guys. That again, it has those huge chocolatey, plummy notes, and it is quite dry and vinegary towards the end, but that's purely down to just the use of wheat within it. One last go, and then we'll give a nice little verdict on this thing. Yeah, similar flavours again. Doesn't really open up too much. That's been sat in a glass for about 30 minutes. I think that's as clean and as easy as it's going to get. It's a really lovely bourbon. They have redesigned it. As far as I'm aware, they've not changed the mash bill. The proportions will still be the same. Because it's not as widely available as it used to be, it kind of makes it more difficult to find. The price is going to go up. I saw one of these sell on an auction for about 120 quid, which is a lot for anything, you know, it's only 12 years old. It's kind of the limit really of bourbon maturation. Anything above that tends to get a little bit too dry, a little bit too intense. So as a result, that does affect my scoring, and it's a very simple flavour. It's not overly complex. You know what you're getting with it. It's to the point. It's very nice. Just a basic 7 out of 10. It's perfectly average. It's perfectly good. Perfectly average isn't the greatest saying in the world, but it does everything you could want it to do for the price that you can buy it at. It's a nice alternative to Maker's Mark, and it just keeps the market a little bit alive. So if you can find the new one, stick a comment below, tell me what you think about it. Has it changed if you've tried the old one? It's always nice to get a little bit of feedback for both ourselves as whiskey drinkers and the brands too. I'm sure they like to know about that too. So yeah, W.L.Weller 12-year-old, 45%, old bottling, old style, 7 out of 10. That's our Whisky Wednesday score. And thank you very much for watching, guys. I will see you next week. Cheers.